Welcome to the Uplift, where we are uplifting our lives, uplifting each other, and uplifting our communities together. Thank you for joining myself, Cy Herrera, and Tessa Savala here, two women, two attorneys, doing it our way, and inviting you here each week to share in on the stories, advice, and life lessons we've picked up along our journeys that keep us uplifted, and that will hopefully do the very same thing for you. Now buckle in and let's get ready to be uplifted.
Hello, everyone. As always, I am Tessa, and I am joined by the lovely, amazing, accomplished, so amazing to be around, Cy.
Thank you, Tessa. I'm so happy to be here with you and everyone listening. It's always a pleasure.
So, we've talked a lot about like curating our friends and curating the information we take in. And to that end, I actually follow my own advice and every other piece of advice. And so I curate the my Instagram feed, like, so that I am the first person to block or stop following somebody if I see something that I'm like, that's a lot of negativity. Hmm,
hmm
too much for me. But I started following this week, maybe last week, an account called The Ladies of Madison Avenue. And it's this photographer who does street style. And he's just taking pictures of these women who just have like impeccable style. And they're not like famous and they're not models and they don't have stylists. They're just like humans, right? Like, surprise! It's not like all staged all the time. But he has these set of rules for commenting on his page that he sticks by. And I don't know if he blocks people, but he seems pretty serious about it. But I thought, wow, these set of rules that he's established are like perfect, like for just everyday life and like how you're dealing with people, how you deal with yourself, whether or not you should make purchases, whether or not you should take that job. And I'm like, I think this is a great conversation topic. So these are his three rules, and I hope that you enjoy them as much as I did. First question, is it important? Second question, is it necessary? Third question, before you take action, is, but most of all, is it kind? If it's not kind, don't comment. And I'm like, wow, like a self imposed governor. This is amazing.
Oh yes, this would be amazing if everyone actually lived by this. I'm just imagining how amazing
Right.
this would be.
I know it dovetails into something that Adam, oh my God, Adam Grant, the genius Wharton Business School person, posted about authenticity this week, which is authenticity is nothing if you don't start with kindness and empathy.
Mm,
And I'm like,
mm,
yes, because I personally think a lot of people use authenticity as an excuse just to be mean to people.
Interesting. Yeah. Yeah, because they're looking for an opportunity.
Mm-hmm.
And then this
Right?
thing is coded as good. And so they're like, great, I get to use that. Interesting. But this rule, this set of rules is really fascinating because especially online, but I think even in everyday life, as you say, like people look for a reason, to kind of be cruel sometimes. And I frankly believe that a lot of it has to do with like they're trying to work out their own stuff. I really do
Oh,
think a lot of
absolutely.
time that's
Absolutely.
just what it is, and it usually has nothing to do with you per se. It's like something that you've done or something that you had the audacity to like try, in life has
Uh-huh.
has triggered something in them, and it's usually fear or insecurity, or something along those lines. And so, anytime somebody has a big emotional reaction to something I'm doing, my first instinct is to think, huh, I wonder what's going on with them, and
Yeah.
what this is, awakening in them. And so I love this because it's essentially an opportunity for people to be reflective, for all of us to be reflective. It's a great call, for us to, use one of our tools that we always talk about, which is just to pause first. Like you can't go through
Mm-hmm.
these little questions. You can't go through this little, set of standards unless you take a pause and and
Yep.
and think before you speak, right? And think
Mm-hmm.
about the consequences of your actions. And so many times people just go. I mean, they just let, I like I say, they let their emotions kind of push them around, they just react instead of being thoughtful. And there are consequences to that. There are real consequences to that, actually. And so I just appreciate this opportunity to pause and to have something so clear that makes it kind of easy, frankly, to really decide what you're going to say, or if you're going to say it, or like who you're going to say it to, right?
All right. And, I have this thing that has lingered in my head for probably more than a decade now. When I worked in the Capitol and I was interacting with a lot of legislators, obviously, this, I think I should identify gender. This legislator
Hmm.
was said something to me when I was waiting for a meeting to start and was reading a book for pleasure. And and it was like 10 p.m. at night. Everybody had had a long night. There was a
Hmm.
committee meeting or, people were on edge. But this is what this legislator said. Oh, trash reading. Let me tell you that this book won a Pulitzer Prize. Okay.
Hmm.
And I'm just like, but it has stuck with me because I'm like, one, that was not important to say. Two, that was not necessary to say. And
Hmm.
three, is sure as F was not kind to say.
Yeah, yeah.
Right? Like the judgment on that. We should all just be
And
happy that
fourth,
people are
none
reading.
of your business. But anyways,
Yes. Okay, that's a great number four to add to this, right?
is this any of your business, actually?
I feel like it is. I think this little like set of rules is so important because it's even just like this comments that we make, thinking we are being helpful or thinking that
Mm,
we are offering advice, perhaps unsolicited.
unsolicited, yes, our favorite
And
kind.
yeah, the best, absolutely the best. But it's like a nice little like and quick kind of analysis before we
Mhm.
start doing things. And like, I wish more people would do this, and I think I'm going to start incorporating it because wow, maybe I've said some things that are unkind. I am certain I have because everybody has, but this little analysis I think could be very efficient and very effective.
It just occurred to me too that it could be used the other way around.
Ooh,
So,
interesting. Tell me more.
we could be we're talking about it as like a kind of self-policing, if you will. But
Mm-hmm.
if somebody is just unsolicited, just offering advice and comments like this, maybe it's an opportunity to be curious, to help them, think about the thing that they've said too. I mean, just in the example
Oh.
you've given, I know this is probably a snotty thing to say, but frankly, they started it. But you could really ask, like, why, I'm curious, why was that important for you to say to me in this moment? And what is it important and necessary? Like, why was it
Mm-hmm.
necessary? I mean, you could use it as like a questionnaire as well, because and you could ask, like, did you think it was a kind thing to say? And I mean, just literally challenging people to go there, because they've never, they obviously don't have this internal dialogue or internal set of standards that they're holding their comments up against. And so I wonder if it's possible to maybe, use it as an opportunity to help people challenge themselves and their actions.
I love this. Now imagine it's the holidays and you're surrounded
Mm.
by relatives who might say things that
Mm.
are inappropriate and often do
And unkind, yes.
and unkind. This might be a
Mhm.
nicer way than what I think we suggested last year, which was not having this conversation.
Yeah, yeah.
Maybe this is
And
more
yeah,
thoughtful.
maybe because then you're giving people the opportunity to answer the questions for themselves, right? Instead
Yeah.
of telling them the conclusions, I always say, I mean, there's just people that have to learn for themselves the hard way, is what I always say. Like, you like to learn the hard way, right? So some people
Yeah.
like to learn for themselves, and it's more effective that way for them to really, have to go through the struggle. That's how we learn as human beings, right? We have to almost struggle with something, whether it's, physically, mentally, emotionally, or what have you. Once you go through that struggle, I mean, that's the human experience. That's when you really come out on the other side with something new, with something that you've changed, you've transformed, right? And so maybe it's the opportunity. I mean, you could even say, like, hey, I like to live my life by these rules, or I like to live my life, I like to challenge myself before I offer something to someone else, and I always ask these 3 questions, and I wonder, I mean, they're engaging you.
Right?
So
Yeah.
why not be curious about it? And if they don't wanna engage in those questions, I'm sure that they can opt out. But if they even just hear you asking them to reflect in that moment, I really feel like there's an opportunity for us to take some power up out of this, take some power back in this situation. Because oftentimes when people just tell me things that are unsolicited and sometimes very hurtful, just like, negative things, like, you are commenting
Mhm.
on my body. Why? Like, why is
Mhm.
that important? Like, why, like, what made you feel compelled to share your
Mhm.
opinion right now? Like, I feel like it would be, and I mean, frankly, sometimes in my personal experience, like, I just kind of like get stunned. I think a lot of us do. I think with a
Oh,
lot,
yeah.
and I want to say like when you're younger, it's even more frequent. But honestly, you don't really grow out of it. I think it's just a matter of like you're
True.
finding tools on how to react to this very bad thing, this very negative thing. So maybe this is another tool for the toolkit. I mean, maybe this is something we can use to get some of our power back out of the situation and ask somebody else to challenge what they've just done and challenge them because it was wrong for them to do it. And it's okay to challenge people when they've done something wrong. And usually, I just feel like I don't know how to challenge people except to say, like, what I do now is I just tell people how it makes me feel. And I'm just like, that was very hurtful. That was hurtful
And
to me, and that sometimes that helps, but I love the challenge too.
I do too, and I often find the people who say these, let's call them inappropriate things,
Hmm.
don't really care how I feel
Right,
about it and
right.
don't care how I react to it. For
Mm.
them, it's more important what they said, right?
Yeah. Yeah, they wanted to get out their feelings. And again, it's just like even that, it's like you just have this need to express yourself regardless of other people's, emotional reaction to it, like regardless of the harm that you cause. And I think that, salud. I think that that's probably the thing here where it's like, how are we cutting through that apathy? What's the opposite of empathy, I guess, like this disregard for other people's emotion. Like, how do you cut through with that? And so I wonder if this might work. This might work in some situations at least. This might be an opportunity for us to have a tool that we can use and say, have you ever thought of this? Have you ever, I mean, you could think of, I mean, even just like thinking about like, how did you think that was going to make me feel? Is
Yeah.
another one to just be like, I wonder if you can reflect on this next time before you just say things out loud.
And here's something that hit me when you were talking, and I don't think I've ever thought these th- thought this while it's happening to me, but
Mhm.
maybe it is that these people who say these things have never had the same experience with empathy
Mm.
or kindness and don't understand that what they're saying is unkind.
Right, exactly, exactly, and I mean, and that's why I'm saying it could even start a discussion, like, it's gonna start something
Yeah.
in them, right, to just for once sit back and think, like, even just to literally have a moment to think about, "Was that kind?" And even if their conclusion is like, "Yeah, I think it's kind," then you might have an opportunity to be like, "I disagree. Like, to me,
Mhm.
this was not a kind thing to say, and let me tell you how it made me feel." So
Mhm.
it's an opportunity to just kind of like not allow those things to just hit you like a brick and fall down, but rather to take that and say, okay, let's talk about why you threw this brick. And let's talk about whether it was the right thing to do and whether you should be doing it again. Right. And I think that's one of the interesting things is like people do get away with a lot.
Oh my god, do they ever.
They get away with so much, and I'll just say that, like, I think a lot of it is there's a lot of gendered stuff in here, or
Oh,
even just,
mhm.
like, the power dynamic, depending on the relationship, like, there's a lot of that goes on that we just don't really talk about as a society. It's just like, "Oh, well, that's how he is," or,
Ugh,
like,
I
"This
hate
is
that
not."
expression.
It's the worst, right? Or you just, like, literally know that, like, it's not worth it, right? Like, when I was young, I would start arguments over, it's not even an argument, I just felt like everything needed to be addressed. I was just like, this is not okay. That's not okay. That's not okay. And it's exhausting when there's a lot of not okay happening, right? It was exhausting for me too. So, but also I felt like I was exhausting, which is unfair to me because it's not me doing the things. I'm just
You know,
reacting to the things.
I just got this image in my mind, like maybe we are like a castle and we have a
Mm,
moat around us, and
mm,
these questions are the moat, and we can decide whether or not we allow people in, or we
yes.
provide a drawbridge, and that drawbridge is they have to answer these questions to get into our
But you don't
space.
have to open the gate yet.
Exactly, you don't. You do not.
I love that. And I mean, that shows like you have the power too. And that's the thing is like when people degrade you, which is the way I feel that these comments really are, like I consider these just like, again, in my mind, there's only kind of two communication styles. There's like healthy communication and there's abusive communication. I'm sure that people will
Hmm.
argue me on that somehow, but in my mind, it's very simple. And when people degrade you with their words, that's abusive. And you
Hmm.
have to just call it what it is, either for yourself or to the person, but you have to react. You have to I guess I should say it helps you to formulate the best decisions for your life, in relation to what is happening, right? Like when you really understand that like this person is hurting you on purpose, or even not on purpose, but this person is hurting you, period, with their words, it gives you another perspective. It gives you this perspective of like, oh, maybe I shouldn't be letting this person keep coming into my castle and beating me. Like, like just
Surprise! Not a good idea.
right. But like literally sometimes it is a surprise because you're just like, oh, but I love
Hmm.
this person. Why wouldn't I let
Yeah.
them into my castle? That doesn't make any sense. Like I've always loved this person, right? And I think that they love me. But I mean it really is hard to detach yourself from like the idea that you have a loving relationship versus you may want to love this person and they might want to love you, or maybe you're supposed to love this person, they're supposed to love you, but the relationship that you actually have, is it healthy or is it abusive? And if it's abusive, you have to know that that's not what love looks like.
I feel like a lot of us who have been in that position, and a lot of us who get these type of comments from people who either say they're our friend or our lover or our loved one, have not given ourselves permission
Mhm.
to ask these questions. And I
Mm.
don't even want to say defend ourselves. I want to say we haven't given ourselves permission to stand up and build up our confidence, because I don't want to make it about tearing the other person down. I want it to be about
Right.
us building ourselves up by protecting ourselves with these, questions of whether or not we allow this person to enter our space with their comments.
Right. And is it kind, I guess, according to these standards, like is it kind to basically hold up a mirror to other people? And I would argue that it is because, just as we touched on, a lot of times people have been getting away with their abusive relationship styles for so many
Mm-hmm.
years that they literally, I honestly don't know that they understand how wrong it is. I really don't think that they know. I think that they've been accommodated, they've
Oh
been
yeah,
protected,
boys
they've
will be
been,
boys.
I'm telling you. And so when that happens, like what perception must they have? Like it just makes me think about, and I know this is unfair to talk about, adults as children, but it's like when you think about a child and you're trying to help them, guide them in the right behaviors, in the right thing to do, and the right way to treat people, if you just let a child, treat everyone like a little terror, um, that's who they're gonna be. You know what I mean? Like you have to correct them. You must correct them. And I don't know that we can change people's behaviors as adults. And I always say you can't change people actually. But what you can do is you can help people understand how they should treat you. period, right? Like they might
Yes.
never change as a person, but you can let them know, like, this is not going to fly with me. You are not going to come
Right.
to me and treat me this way. You are not going to, tell me this. You're not going to put me down. You're not going to call me names. You can tell people that that is not okay. And you can be very serious about it. You can let them know, you can give them as many chances as your soul and spirit allow you to still feel good about yourself. So we're not here to tell anybody what their standards should be, but you should develop a standard for yourself
Hmm.
that feels right in your heart. And then you should hold yourself and everyone else to that standard, because if you don't, now you're hurting yourself, and and I don't want to say you're allowing abuse, because I don't think that's really a thing. I think what's happening is that you're not communicating your standards, and you're not helping people to understand that it's inappropriate and it's unacceptable. And when you do that, then unfortunately, like that's really how, the behavior's always gonna it's never gonna change, if it ever could. But more importantly, you're never going to hold yourself to a standard that says, I have the power to allow the people in my life that are going to treat me well, and to exclude the people who refuse to live up to my standards on how to treat me, right? Like you'll just never get to that point if you don't start having this kind of practice. And so that's why I encourage people to like have a standard, stick to it, be communicative about it to the extent that it's possible, and you have the power in your life to control all of those things.
And I know a block that I have on speaking up when I should in this type of scenario is I either don't give myself permission to do it because I'm like, not worth my effort, or B, I assume that everybody is well behaved, which is a flaw in my logic. I totally understand this. But I live in this happy little world where I think everybody has basic manners. And
Mm,
Emily Post, I believe, was described etiquette and manners as a sensitivity to others,
mm,
which I think is a fantastic explanation for manners, right? It's it's not about how hoity-toity it can be. It's about what
right.
am I doing to make sure everybody is as comfortable as they can be at a moment.
Yeah, yeah.
And
Including
this is
yourself. That's the one thing that I will add
yes,
to that, because some people take it to the
exactly.
extreme and they forget about their own comfort, and forget
Correct.
about caring for themselves. So that's the only caveat I would say with that.
And maybe that's like a part two to the three question on is it, but most of all, is it kind? Because it's not only kind to the other person, but is it kind to you to just sit there and take it?
Mm, mm-hmm. Absolutely. Because at the end of the day, there has to be a balance, right?
Oh, absolutely. And I, perfect. I think that giving ourselves permission to protect our peace, to protect our castle, is so important. And I think for me, at least, it would help me ask these type of questions. And I think, I can see myself saying, so was that important for you to tell me? Or did you think it was necessary that I had this information? And did you think that you were being kind by telling me this stuff?
Yeah. Yeah. And
And I
then if
hope
the
that it
answer is no, the question should be, why do you think it's unimportant to be kind, right? Like, I mean, that's where the core of it is too, where it's like,
see, you're
that's not
so
a
nice.
standard.
You're so nice. You want to go into this course. I'm like,
I
okay,
do.
you're done.
You're
You're
like,
out.
goodbye.
Yeah.
And that's fine. That's your standard, right? I mean,
Yeah.
and that's one of my flaws, is like, I want to fix people. I mean, I literally studied psychology hoping that I could, and and I had to come to a place where I have to tell myself and others that are people pleasers to say, like, just accept the fact that, like, you cannot change people. Like,
Yeah.
sometimes that has to be the thing that you just realize, like, you can't change people, especially people who do not even seek change, right?
Yeah.
And whenever they get to that point in their journey, like if you can be helpful or something, then that's something. But I have to literally tell myself all these different things. Like you can only help someone until it hurts yourself. Like because otherwise, like you just fall into the trap of like sacrificing yourself for someone else's progress. And it's a far too common trap. So I think that you're just in a healthier mode of being like, Not my circus, not my monkey" type of situation.
But I love that you're willing to explore because I don't know if it's necessarily. I can see how exploring these questions with, say, the person who has offended you or
Mhm.
has offended the sensibilities of humanity. That might be a better way of saying it. Is how do you're kind of giving them the directions on how to communicate with you, right? And
Yeah.
presumably with somebody you have in your life, at some point in time, they're going to want something from you. So you're like, hey, if you want me to help you in the future, or if you want to like hang out in the future, these are the things that I need for that to
Yeah.
happen. And if you're
Yeah.
not willing to do that, then that's cool. But this is the rules of the game for me.
Exactly. Yeah, and I kind of love the idea of just laying them out, right? Because that's
Yeah.
another thing is like I feel like in relationships people just kind of like I don't know, there's like a guessing game that happens, right? Where it's like
Oh
you
yeah,
just
mind reading. How fun.
mind reading and it's like sure everyone should have manners and they should know how to treat people generally, but the truth is some people don't. And this is
Yep.
where it gets fascinating for me and the psychology side of it all. It's like the people who are using abusive relationship styles, I honestly feel like from what I've seen usually that's all that they know, and it's kind of
Yeah.
tragic, right? Where I'm just like, "Ugh, how are we going to go back in time and give you
But
options?
it's
This
also
is
like
hard."
reality, I have to say, right? Because I
Mhm.
don't think I'd say more people I know did not have good role models on
Mhm.
mental health
Mhm.
care, how to treat other
Yes.
people, how to
Right.
love, how to communicate.
Right.
And so if we want to change the world, I think we have to start telling people how to best
Exactly.
communicate with us.
Exactly. Yes. And if we go around walking on eggshells
Ugh.
and just allowing people to continue their way without being challenged,
Mhm.
things are definitely not going to change. And so again, like I feel like there's this weird balance that I'm trying to articulate because it's one that I struggle with all the time, where it's an in between of like writing people off entirely and just being,
Mm.
well, can't change people. So what are you gonna do?
So sounds like
Just
my style.
yeah, just cut them out,
Mhm.
which is an option. I think that there are different tools and it depends on the situation.
Oh,
Um, and
absolutely it
and
does.
then there's another opportunity, and it really depends on the relationship too. It's like this legislator, you probably, maybe you have to work with them, but it was a one-off comment. You're not in a relationship with this person, so that's
Correct.
a
Mhm.
different thing, But what if it's somebody that you care really deeply about and
Yeah.
you want to have a relationship with them? It's worth a shot to be like, hey, this is what I expect. And what I really love about where this conversation is going is that this is one way to help people understand, if you're willing to communicate it, what isn't acceptable, what is your standard within relationships, what you expect, right? And so
Mhm.
being able to articulate it, I think honestly is it feels like one of the hardest things. It feels like one of the
It
hardest
does.
things, and you don't know where to start, right? Where if somebody's being rude to you or abusive, using abusive language or relationship style, and you don't like it, it's bad. One
Yep.
of the things you might do is you might react by doing nothing at all because you're stunned, which I relate.
Mhm.
I've been there. You might react by making excuses for them and saying, "Oh, poor them. They've never had a good upbringing or a good role model, so they don't know any
Mhm.
better." Right? Because you're so empathetic that you don't even know what else to do except for to be empathetic and caring for people, right? Been there.
Mhm. Oh yeah.
I'm
Mhm.
getting these examples somewhere. And then the other options that you could consider is you can consider when it happens in the moment, challenging people in a way that taking a pause and frankly working out a way or a practice rather, instead of like, just taking it all in and letting it hurt you and letting it like stun you, taking a pause, understanding that that emotion is there, and finding a practice to challenge people in the moment in a way that is not aggressive, right, or reactionary or
Hmm.
emotional, but rather starts a conversation, and talks more about like the harmful effects of it, right? And you might consider having a conversation completely separately from the incident, especially if there's a pattern or if it's a new relationship and you can get this out in the front, that's most ideal, I would say, and have this conversation from the start to let this person know in no uncertain detail what your standards are, what your expectations are, and how you're going to, just that you're serious basically about holding people to those standards if they want to be a part of your life. And that, I think, is a big challenge, but it's one that's so worth it, right? Because when you get to that place, then you're actually talking about it instead of reacting to it. You're being proactive and you are in control in the sense of you're expressing out loud and communicating out loud what you really want and what you really deserve and what you will and will not allow in your life, and that's taking power. I feel like there's, abusive language is meant to make you feel powerless. It's meant to take your power. That's what it is. When somebody insults you and makes you feel like shit, it's because they want you to feel small. They
Hmm.
want you to feel powerless. They want you to be in a place of vulnerability so they can take advantage of you.
Hmm.
And so that's why I think of everything in the form of healthy versus abusive, because it helps me understand when something is abusive, somebody is trying to exercise power over you. That was like a huge like aha moment for me when I learned about abuse. I was like, "Oh, like people are not being mean to you because they're mean or because they had a hard life or because anything else, like it's nothing to do with that." And when I learned that abuse was about taking control over me, that's when I was like, "Oh, hell no." Like, no more excuses for people because I don't care. I don't care why you're doing it. I don't care if it's a reaction to your trauma or whatever. At the end of the day, you're actually using these tactics as a way to control me, and I've never been one to be controlled. It's been a lifelong situation. That is not something I care to have, right? And so that helped me understand like it's unacceptable. But before that, I didn't know that abuse was unacceptable, honestly. I didn't know. Well, I didn't even know that it was abuse, right? Like
Yep.
I just thought
Yep.
this is how that person is, or this is how they communicate, or they don't know, they don't talk like this person or that person. This is just how they react. Like, I mean, it's just so confusing when you don't have the language, or for me it was. And now that I understand that abuse is about taking power and control over another person, and that this is what abusive language looks like. There's emotional abuse, there's financial abuse, there's sexual abuse, there's verbal and physical abuse. There's so many types. But when you realize that people are just using tools to control you, I hope for you, maybe it does the same thing as it did for me, like where I understand it now and understand that I want to reject that and that it's unacceptable because a lot of people, I mean, that's just normal for them. It really is it's just their normal. So we have to see it for what it is, and we have to also figure out a way to communicate that you see it, because one of the best tools against abuse is to shine a light on it. It really is. Like abuse just thrives in darkness. It's like one of those weird plants, right? But if
Oh,
you
yeah.
really shine a light, then it's like, okay, what are you going to do now? We're calling it what it is, like calling a spade a spade. This is what it is, and I'm not going to accept it, right? And that's the best defense, I would say.
And I could now say that I could have really used this advice like 3 or 4 weeks ago. Well, first,
Mm,
let's backtrack. I don't think I totally agree with you that you have to learn what abuse is and you have to understand
mhm,
what's to have the knowledge of understanding how you're being treated. I don't think I got that until I was
mhm.
maybe late 20s,
Yep.
30s,
Same.
early
Exactly the
30s, where
same.
you're like,
Yep. Yeah.
oh,
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 why are we
that's
not?
what that
I
was
mean,
about.
This should
Yeah,
be in kids' school books. Like, I don't
totally,
understand.
totally. And so a few weeks ago, I had this same scenario with my brother, who I have a very complicated relationship with.
Mhm.
I had written a eulogy at my aunt's request for our uncle,
Mm.
and I got a text message berating me for uh, errors in the error-free obituary
Clearly.
that I wrote and eulogy,
Of course.
and that I just shut down because that's what I have
Mm.
clearly said today that
Yeah.
when I don't like something, I'm like, "Whooshoo, there goes the doors, there go the
I
walls."
just imagined you, like, hitting a little button and, like, the floor drops out from under somebody, and then you're just like, "Bye."
And I fully understand that that's probably not the best way to exist, so that having an actual dialogue is much better than "I am just going to power down and shut down now. Good luck with
Uh-huh.
that." And
Yeah.
then I went to this place where I'm like, "Oh, this is how he's grieving." So his grief, and I try
Mm.
to justify it with his grief was about attacking and being angry.
Mm.
And I'm like,
Mm.
but that's exactly what you pointed out, that, you're trying to explain this away with
Yes.
empathy or something like
Yep.
that. And
Yep.
now I realize that the best thing that could have happened, which did not occur because I powered down, is I could have asked, "Hey, was it necessary that you tell me this? And did you think it was kind to tell me this?
Yes, 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 yes. Let
And
them
how
have a
much
struggle
we
instead of
both could
us.
learn." Yeah,
Yeah. Like, we're going through a struggle alone because of their actions, as opposed to,
right.
like, putting it on them and be like, "Hey, you need to struggle with what you just did with your own actions." Right?
And I
Like,
think,
that's just wild how we
yeah.
take that on. We take on that onus.
And I was thinking about these questions. I think not only could it help the other person have a better understanding of how to communicate with you, but it also gives you a better understanding of what their boundaries and ground rules are, because they're clearly not communicating them with anybody if this is how they
Mm,
think communication should be, right? So
right.
maybe it is a symbiotic kind of question that
Mm,
everybody in that situation can learn by asking these questions.
perhaps. And I wonder if, I mean, I would love to have an understanding of, and maybe we need to have a phrase for it, but it's like, what about setting an expectation that everyone should have this kind of, I don't know what you would call it, like a little like primer of like expectations for our relationship talk. Like everyone has the
Yeah,
talk.
right.
Usually the talk is, the sex talk, but like we need a talk that's related to boundaries and related
Yep,
to standards of treatment
yep.
in a relationship and consequences,
Hmm.
of breaching that standard of trust, right? Like we need a conversation, and it's like all of us need a conversation in probably every relationship, frankly. And
Oh
it's like
yeah.
it's hard to like even imagine that, but what's funny to me is that if you don't have it, it's not funny, it's sad, but if you don't have that conversation, then it's kind of like what I say when, life is pushing you around. It's like you're just letting the circumstances of that relationship or that other person just kind of push you around in the relationship like they're your new bully because there was never any standard set. And so like how can we make it an expectation? How can we talk about this thing in a way that everybody understands? Hey, oh, did you have that talk? When are you having the
Hmm.
talk? Oh, you've been married for 20 years. Maybe now's the time for the talk. Maybe you're in a new relationship and now that's the time for the talk. Like I mean, maybe it's like things are not going well. You should probably have the talk before they get worse. Like maybe it's we can just keep moving more and more upstream so that way people understand that it's first of all, it's their right and they deserve, to be heard, and they deserve to have standards, and they deserve for people to live up to those standards. They deserve to have relationships where people live up to their standards. I mean, there's so much work that we have to do going back where people even feel worthy of setting standards.
Hmm.
But then we have to like make it normal, make like normalize this thing. We need to normalize the this talk. I don't know what it's called yet, but we have to come up with a good kind of like reference to it so that we can start talking to each other about and holding each other accountable like, hey, have you had that talk yet?
And I think, it applies to even like work colleagues, right? Like, 'cause we all
Yes.
have that work colleague who's like,
Yes.
"Oh, can you help me with this? Can you help me with that?" And they're asking for help for pretty much everything that is their job,
Mhm.
so that they don't have a job anymore because they have delegated it to everybody else by
Mm.
asking them for help.
Yep. There's that. Absolutely.
And so, how do you? I don't want to call them boundaries because that seems so. Hmm,
Well, I think it's
seems,
just setting expectations, really. I mean,
yeah.
and with work, I mean, it's even easier, frankly, because I mean, somebody starts and there should absolutely be a conversation about expectations. I mean, a
Oh
lot of
yeah.
times there's a conversation about like, oh, this is what my job description says or whatever. But I think if we're normalizing this relationship thing, people need to understand that we all need to recognize that at work, we're working in relationships. We're not working in silos. We're not working in just our job description even. Like, I mean, you can have your job description that tells you what you're supposed to do, but everyone knows, like the people make all the difference, right?
Oh
So
yeah.
when you start working with somebody, that's a relationship and you have to put into it and you have to be able to communicate with one another. And I've seen all too many times where people just have different communication styles, they have different expectations. I mean, a lot of the work that I do frankly it ends up being like a facilitator situation where I'm just like, okay, this
Hmm.
person expects this and you expect that, and actually y'all are closer than you think, but you're like two ships in a night, just like not able to communicate with each other. Like, this is what's really going on. There's the missing piece. This is the conversation that needs to happen. But if you just have a talk in the beginning, first of all, that's very important. But the other thing is, we call them check-ins, like having regular check-ins on expectations and performance. But I mean, just general, I'm talking about when you have a relationship where it's a reporting relationship. But I mean, just with anyone, I think that you could have a check-in with somebody. It could be super informal. You can just be like, hey, when you started a couple months ago, we talked about like this is how our relationship was going to be. How do you feel it's going? Like
Hmm.
just that simple. And here's how I feel it's going. And I think that we're doing great in these ways. And I think that we have some opportunities in these ways, or we're having some challenges with this. Like, how can we resolve it, type of things. And I mean, it's kind of funny that you bring it up that way, because it becomes so clear to me as it becomes more clear to me in a workplace relationship. It feels more complicated actually to me in personal relationships. But that's just very telling of myself, I think, where it's like, you know, I feel like we need to have like a whole talk on like where people pleasing comes from. Um,
Yes, I have a
yeah.
I have a friend who likes to say no, 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 K-N-O-W, no, N-O, no. So basically, always say yes. And I'm just like, oh. And,
Mm.
and she's
I
always
thought
just,
you were saying no, no, like know how to say no. I thought that's what you were saying. It's the opposite.
well, it's a lawyer who then has decided to like go off into like this, yeah, left the practice of law, now involved in kind of free love yoga,
Mm.
very transcendental meditation. Like, I appreciate everything the experience she's going through, but at the same time, I'm like, hmm, in the world that we live in, is it really okay to always just say yes? Because
Mm-mm.
either, in my mind, and this is
I'm always like,
obviously,
you need to know the power of no. I mean,
yeah.
I'm always like the power of it all.
And working in politics, I'm like, oh, always saying yes is just like
Could you
creating a
imagine
bunch
if
of
you were a
sycophants.
politician? Oh my
Oh my
gosh.
God.
That's just like I'm sorry, but like you're just gonna become prey in certain environments, and that sucks. Like, I know that sucks. I wish we lived in a place where we could say yes to each other because we all, like you were saying, can know how to behave well, and like we're
That
all
or,
good people. That'd be great, but we don't live in that
the
world, unfortunately.
the other side of politics where, the politicians are asking the lobbyists for this, that, and the other.
Mm,
Like,
mm,
there are no boundaries for what
mm.
they ask for.
Mm-mm. And
And I was
vice
just like,
versa, right? I mean, that's the
right.
whole that's
Hmm.
the symbiotic relationship going on right there.
And there is no analysis occurring, and it is just yes, yes, yes. And it's like,
Mm, mm.
so I tried to explain to her the danger of always
Danger,
saying yes.
yes. Yes, the
Hmm.
danger for sure. And I mean, I get it. It's just, it depends on your, it does depend on where you are in life and what you're talking about specifically.
Sure.
But it's like,
Yeah.
maybe it's like you're trying to say yes to new experiences. I'm all for that. But I
Oh
mean,
yeah.
it's like you got to know, like, especially in like, you just have to know that there are abusers out there. There are
Yes.
predators out there. Like, I mean, you just have to
Yes.
understand that. And I wish that that was not the world that we lived in. And I think when I was young, I didn't want that to be the world, or I just didn't believe that that was the world that we lived in. And unfortunately, the reality of it all has dawned on me over and over and over again. To
And
the
I
point where
think
I'm
we
not
live,
allowed to be naive anymore.
and I think we've found ourselves in a world where the predator or the alpha or the person seeking power is glorified,
Oh,
right?
yes. Oh,
And
God, talk about it.
how do you, it's so important that we protect our peace and ask these important
Mhm.
questions to protect ourselves because we live in a country that has glorified this horrific, abusive type of
Yes,
behavior.
absolutely. Absolutely. And it's terrifying. And that's why when you just told me somebody is saying yes to everything, I got really scared for that person.
Yeah,
Just like
same. Like,
I'm worried for
uh,
you. I just I'm very worried. Hopefully they're protected in some way, but but really, I mean, that's who people look for. That, like I said, when I use the word
mhm,
predator, I use it very intentionally because there are all kinds of predators in the world. I mean,
yep,
there's scammers, there's sexual predators, there's just users. There are just so many predators in the world that are trying to get your money, your body, your mind, your time, your house, I mean, like literally anything that you have, there
mhm,
is a predator out there wanting to take it from you. And so, oh
yeah,
God, I sound like such a fearmonger right now, but I mean, I wish it wasn't true. I'm just like, it is out there and it is real. And it might be in little ways that you've only encountered, but it only takes one bad person that you let in your life, frankly. And I don't even like to say bad people because that's how empathetic I am. I don't think that there are good or bad people, but it only takes one, bad actor, somebody who has bad intentions to devastate you. Oh
oh
God.
yeah.
Yeah, so
I
I'm
mean,
worried.
as women, think about all the friends we have who heard some random bad
Mhm.
comment about their body
Mm.
from someone when they were, say, a preteen,
Mhm.
and how many of them remember it well into their
Forever.
30s and 40s and
Forever.
50s and
Yes.
beyond, I'm sure.
Yes. Yes.
Like,
And struggle
I,
with it every time they're making
yep,
decisions. Like it
yep,
becomes a part of their entire like logic model. And
yep,
it's just like,
mhm.
oh, is that serving me? But you might never ever ask yourself that because you don't even think about it. It's just there.
And think how powerful it'd be if, me as a preteen had this type of like toolkit
Mm.
to ask and had the confidence to ask, say, that relative, was that necessary to tell me? How did you
Yeah.
think you were helping me? And how was this kind to me by doing this?
Absolutely. Oh my gosh. Yeah. Yeah. And I wonder, I mean, young people are not known for being this reflective, but I mean, maybe it's changing, first of all.
I'm
I think that
hopeful.
they're
I'm so
so
hopeful.
incredibly intelligent, right? But
Yes.
this is emotional intelligence. That's really what it
Yeah.
is. It's emotional intelligence and it's relationship intelligence, which nobody talks about it in those terms. I wish we would. But it's like we need to understand ourselves, our relationships with others. We need to understand our emotions. We need to understand, like, there's so much there and so much time. I mean, you just talked about our country and like how we perceive the world or what the prevailing perceptions are in regards to people and the way that they treat others. And one of the things that dawns on me is like this country is not known specifically for like, investing in high emotional intelligence and and, and it makes me really sad. And I know some people are doing great work out there and I love them for it. I mean, I know that there's
Yeah.
some schools even in Austin that are like this is their jam, like they're making it
Oh,
about it.
yeah.
But what I'm saying is like that is not our prevailing, mainstream culture. And I wish it really was. Oh, yes, remind me to let you know that Brene Brown is coming into town. But there's so much of this opportunity here where it's like, yes, if we could keep going farther and farther upstream, we can do things for ourselves now, no matter what age we are. I don't care if you're 80 years old and you're in a
Agreed.
relationship. Like literally, I've coached people at that age in their relationships, right? It's like there's always an opportunity. But I mean, think about the people in your lives. Like I'm thinking about my nieces and my baby girl, and there's some great books that are talking to kids about, or girls specifically, about how their body's going to change. And then I think it starts to talk about sex and things like that, which I'm really excited about the fact that there are books on that are age appropriate, because I don't think that they existed when I was young and could have used
Yep.
them. But I wonder if there's anything that exists in that regard related to emotional intelligence, and like how to have these kind of tools, age appropriate tools at every part of at every stage of your life, at every phase of your life, because nobody is really teaching you this. Or I should just say, in my experience, nobody ever really taught me that. It was like, the strong women in my life telling me like, you don't take that shit, or you don't allow for this, or you know what I mean? And it's like, that's great. Thank God I had some of that. But there needs to be a comprehensive
Yeah.
education around this. And I mean, I'm
Hmm.
talking about, like, I'm thinking about kids right now because I'm thinking about those books that are age appropriate, but I'm also thinking about, like, what about us? Like, what about
Yeah.
at this stage in our lives? What about for my grandmother? What about for my mom? What about for my sisters? Like, literally everybody in my life I could think of could benefit from like just good, healthy understanding of emotional relationship intelligence, and in a basic way. I know there's a lot of books out there and a lot of podcasts and, talks and research and all of that good stuff, but it's all so complicated. I just wish that there was like
A cheat sheet.
a cheat sheet, and that there was something that just like literally was easy, and
Yep.
that everyone was talking about in a way that was just so normalized and regular, and that it was something that maybe started when you were young, and it's like it just goes on. It's just like a standard, and people like you just go back and visit that and everybody knows about it. Like I just wish it was standard and that everybody was exposed to it. And that's, I think, the hardest thing is like it's so hard to get people to even prioritize like cultural studies, for example, let alone these things that are
Yeah.
going to specifically empower women and people who are often othered. Like it would be a very difficult challenge to get mainstream people to um prioritize this, especially but maybe there are ways for us to at least be mindful of having these conversations and pulling resources in whatever way we can, for all of the people in our lives, but especially women going through every stage and era of their life.
But I think you made a fabulous point about anyone who is other. Think how many kids could benefit from at least having the tools to say something, and knowing that they had permission to say something when someone says something that is
Mm-hmm.
inappropriate,
Yes.
abusive,
Yes.
unkind.
Yes. To
I
know
think
what
it could.
abuse even is. Oh.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
I want that.
I hope
I want that.
I do too. And now I'm like, I hope that every person who listens can share these questions with people around them, because we have holidays coming up. And I think it's a
Mm-hmm.
good time for everybody to prepare mentally, because we all know somebody's going to say something that is,
Not
let's just say,
necessary, not
not
important, and not
necessary.
kind.
No, is, intends to or unintentionally tears down your peace. And that is not cool.
Not cool at all. And maybe, I mean, it could literally be that easy. I feel like we should make a little cheat sheet of things that you can say.
Yeah,
Just
totally.
like, not cool. That was not cool.
See,
Instead of
and I
saying
don't even,
nothing.
and I think that is such a great baby step, right? Like, if you don't
Hmm.
want to engage in the dialogue,
Hmm.
just say, not cool, or I'm
Not
not
cool.
having that conversation,
Yeah. No, no. I like to
or
say,
we're not doing that.
I don't allow it. Like, I like to play judge and be like, I'll allow it, or I don't allow it.
It's starting to remind me of when I tell my dogs, I'm like, okay, you
No.
are chairman of the misappropriation committee at this point in time.
Exactly. But I mean, we have to see ourselves as taking a role of power over our lives
Yeah.
and over our emotional state. Really, because that's the
Mhm.
other thing. It's just like when we talk about curating our social media and, our news intake and all of the things that actually color our emotional state, right? Like people are the
Absolutely.
most powerful disruptors of our emotional state. So think maybe it's a whole different thing where you think about what emotional state do you want to be in? I don't know why, but I'm thinking of colors and like what color do you want, what color do you want to live in? And basically like who are you going to allow near that's going to influence or color or change or disrupt that emotional state that you've built, right? And how can you prevent them from changing that or from disrupting that? Because you have to be protective of it, or again, you're going to be prey to somebody who doesn't care about that and wants to change it for the worse so that they can control you. So um, if we think about it, that it's like protecting your castle, like you talked about, protecting, your emotional state is what we're talking about. And these are just a couple of new tools that maybe we can use. And I think this is just the beginning of a conversation, an ongoing conversation that we've been building this toolbox, right, together on all of the things that we can say and do because unfortunately, we probably won't be able to change everyone overnight. I admit that now. But we can absolutely care enough about ourselves and value ourselves enough that we protect our castle, that we protect our precious emotional state, and we do so unapologetically. We do so because we're worthy of that. And so I hope that everyone really believes that and that they do whatever they need to do in order to protect themselves and their emotion.
I could not agree more. And if anybody needs permission, this is your blanket permission to
Yes.
protect yourself, protect your privacy, protect your well being, protect your sensibilities, protect your state of mind, however you want to do it, whether or not it's the "Oh, we're not doing that right now," or the "that's not appropriate," or if it's engaging in a dialogue. Whichever one it
Hmm.
is, start somewhere, give yourself permission to
Yes.
protect yourself.
Love it. I feel so good. No one better say anything backwards to me today because I am ready.
Same. And I hope everyone who is listening takes that same sense of empowerment and protects the privacy of their castles.
Love it. Thank you, Tessa. This has been such a wonderful conversation. I appreciate you so much. I love you.
Love you too. Thank you guys for listening.
Thank y'all. See you next time. Stay uplifted. Bye bye.